This is African American History is American History. Before black protagonists were common in children's books, there was Peter. In 1962, the snowy day quietly broke barriers, bringing diversity and inclusion to children's publishing, and giving millions of black children the joy of finally seeing themselves in a story. In this episode of African American History is American History, we uncover just how one little boy in a red snowsuit changed storytime forever. This is a story about a quiet little book that made a very big difference. This is African American History is American History. In 1962, at the height of the Civil Rights Movement, a picture book hit shelves across America. It didn't shout, it didn't preach, it didn't feature famous names or headline-grabbing protests. It was simply the story of a little boy walking through the snow. But The Snowy Day by Ezra Jack Keats would go on to change the world of children's literature forever. Peter, the story's main character, is a young African-American boy dressed in a bright red snowsuit. After the first snowfall of the season, he sets out to explore his Brooklyn neighborhood. He crunches footprints in the snow. He makes snow angels. He slides down hills. He even pockets a snowball for later. Simple joys, everyday moments, universally human experiences. And yet, in 1962, seeing a black child at the center of this kind of a story was groundbreaking. The Snowy Day became the first mainstream children's picture book to feature a black protagonist in a positive, relatable, and stereotype-free role. It didn't make Peter's race the subject. Instead, it let Peter be Peter, a child, a dreamer, a part of the American story. The Snowy Day was written and illustrated by Ezra Jack Keats, a white Jewish artist from Brooklyn. The book was a bold step toward inclusion at a time when children's literature was overwhelmingly white. Ezra Jack Keats was born Jacob Ezra Katz on March 11, 1916, the son of Polish Jewish immigrants. Growing up poor, young Jacob made pictures out of whatever scraps of wood, cloth, and paper he could collect. His father, Benjamin Katz, who worked as a waiter, tried in vain to discourage his son's artistic tendencies. His father insisted that artists lived terrible, impoverished lives. Nevertheless, he sometimes brought home tubes of paint, claiming, "Jacob,
Maybe you can find a use for it. A starving artist came into the restaurant and swapped this for a bowl of soup.
Keats later said of his father,
"He was my silent admirer and supplier. He had been torn between his dread of my leading a life of hardship and his real pride in my work."
For the remaining years of the Great Depression, Jacob Ezra Keats took art classes and worked as a comic book illustrator and a mural painter under the Works Progress Administration, or WPA. At Fawcett Publications, he illustrated backgrounds for the Captain Marvel comic book. He was drafted for military service in World War II, and from 1943 to 1945, he designed camouflage patterns for the U.S. Army Air Force. In 1947, he petitioned to legally change his name to Ezra Jack Keats in reaction to the anti-Semitic prejudice of the time. My Dog is Lost was Keats' first attempt at writing his own children's book, co-authored with Pat Chair in 1960. The main character, Juanito, is an 8-year-old, newly arrived in New York City from Puerto Rico, does not speak English, and has lost his dog. Searching throughout the city, he is helped by children in Chinatown, Little Italy, Park Avenue, and Harlem. In this early work, Keats incorporated Spanish words into the story and featured minority children as central characters. 2 years later, in 1962, Viking Press published The Snowy Day. Keats wrote,
Then began an experience that turned my life around, working on a book with a black kid as hero. None of the manuscripts I'd been illustrating featured any black kids, except for token blacks in the background. My book would have him there simply because he should have been there all along.
This is African American History is American History. Having lived through the Great Depression and anti-Semitism, Keats understood what it felt like to be on the margins. And when he got his chance to write and illustrate his own story, he knew what he wanted to do. Put a black child front and center. As Keats said, he should have been there all along. The book's artwork was revolutionary too. Keats used collage techniques, cut paper, fabric scraps, hand-stamped snowflakes to give the book a dreamy, textured feel. He was inspired by everything from Asian art to Harlem street scenes. And the setting? Well, not some quaint countryside or faraway fantasy world, but the urban landscape of New York City. Suddenly, city sidewalks became magical places. Snow-covered cars on apartment stoops became sights of wonder. Peter's world looked like the real world, and that mattered. The impact was immediate and lasting. In 1963, The Snowy Day won the prestigious Caldecott Medal, awarded for the most distinguished children's picture book of the year. And it remains, to this day, the most checked out book in the history of the New York Public Library. and for many African American children and their parents and teachers, it was the first time they saw themselves in a book that didn't focus on struggle, but on joy. Letters poured in. One teacher wrote to Keats saying, for the first time, her students reached for the brown crayons to draw themselves. Another letter included collages made by students, inspired by Peter's red snowsuit. Langston Hughes himself wrote to Keats to thank him. Of course, The Snowy Day wasn't without its critics. As the civil rights movement grew, some questioned whether Keats, as a white man, could authentically depict a black child's life. Others thought Peter's mother, who briefly appears in the book, resembled an outdated stereotype. Keats, who had changed his name in the 1940s to avoid anti-Semitic discrimination, took the criticism to heart. He explained that Peter's mother was modeled on his mother. He remained adamant. Peter wasn't a token. He was simply a child. And for millions of children of color, Peter meant possibility. Ezra Jack Keats would go on to write and illustrate 22 books, but none would leave a legacy quite like The Snowy Day. He never married. He often said that his characters were his children. In the decades since, more authors of color have picked up the pen. More stories of diversity, identity, and belonging have taken center stage. But it all started with one little boy in a red snowsuit making tracks in the snow. This has been African American History is American History. I'm Harlan Kearsley. Thank you for listening. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe. Once you do, you'll be notified as soon as new episodes are posted. Thanks again, and please stay safe. African American History is American History. Copyright H.C. Kearsley, 2025.